Abraham Lincoln and music of the Civil War. During the American Civil War, the White House wasn't silent. Beneath the weight of war and loss, Abraham Lincoln found refuge not in politics, nor in prose, but in music. And though he was one of the least musical presidents in our history, Lincoln's life was surrounded by melody, by the sound of brass and the echo of song that comforted his troubled heart. Abraham Lincoln couldn't read a note of music. He played no instrument, and his reedy Kentucky tenor voice was nothing like Hollywood's deep baritone portrayals. And yet, he loved music with a passion. It was his solace, a way to soothe the melancholy that never left him. He often escaped the White House for evenings at Washington's opera houses, and when duties kept him home, the songs came to him. Musicians performing in parlors, singers visiting the East Room, and brass bands filling the White House lawns on summer nights. When war raged, the U.S. Marine Band, known as the President's Own, played waltzes and quicksteps just outside his window, their music carrying over the Capitol like a promise that life still went on. Lincoln's friend Ward Hill Layman often sang for him. Sometimes Layman's songs would make the president cry. Other times, they made him laugh until tears mingled with joy. Their friendship would follow Lincoln from rural Illinois to the White House. But once, a simple request for a song led to misunderstanding. During a trip to Antietam 2 weeks after the battle, Lincoln asked Lamont to sing as they rode between camps. The press twisted that story, claiming Lincoln joked and sang among the dead. He hadn't. Still, it revealed something telling. Even in the shadow of death, Lincoln turned instinctively to music, not for entertainment, but for connection, for comfort, for peace. The Washington of his day was alive with sound. Opera houses performed Verdi, Mozart, Rossini, the great composers of the age. Lincoln attended roughly 30 operas during his presidency. Critics called it frivolous, accusing him of enjoying art while men died on the battlefield. He replied simply, "I must have a change of some sort, or die." Music was his renewal. Inside the White House, he welcomed an extraordinary array of performers. The Hutchinson family singers filled the halls with songs of freedom and reform. 9-year-old Venezuelan prodigy Teresa Carreño played the piano, though she told Lincoln his instrument was out of tune. Tiny performer Commodore George Washington Nutt, barely 2.5 feet tall, sang Columbia, the Gem of the Ocean, to lift Lincoln's spirits after the heartbreak of Fredericksburg. Every note from every guest brought a moment of healing to a man burdened by the war's cost. And perhaps most fascinating of all was Lincoln's affection for a song that belonged in many minds to the enemy, Dixie. Written by a Northerner, Daniel Emmett of Ohio, it became the anthem of the Confederacy, but Lincoln had loved it well before the war. On April 11, 1865, only days after Lee's surrender, crowds gathered outside the White House. Lincoln stepped out and called to the band, "Play Dixie." Then he said with a smile, "I always thought it was one of the best tunes I ever heard. Our adversaries tried to appropriate it, but I insist we've captured it fair and square." And as the music rose into the night, Dixie, like the seceded states, belonged once again to the Union. Lincoln also understood that songs could fight. The Civil War was, in many ways, a musical war. Patriotic tunes rallied armies and shaped public feeling just as much as speeches or newspapers did. Songs like "Rally Round the Flag," "We Are Coming, Father Abraham," and the Battle Hymn of the Republic stirred courage across the North. Lincoln listened, knowing their power. He was so moved by a hymn called "Your Mission" that he asked quietly, in a handwritten note passed to the stage, "Near the close, let us have your mission repeated. Don't say I asked for it." That mixture of humility and emotion sums up Lincoln's relationship with music. Always private, always heartfelt. After the assassination, the nation turned to music again, this time in mourning. Funeral marches and requiems were written almost overnight. Bands that once played quicksteps now played funeral dirges. The U.S. Marine Band accompanied Lincoln's remains through Washington's streets, their measured drumming echoing off the buildings he had once walked past alive. Composers from every era since have paid tribute. Aaron Copland's Lincoln Portrait, Roy Harris's Abraham Lincoln Walks at Midnight, works by Jacob Weinberg, Henry Hadley, Edward Paul. Hundreds of pieces, symphonies, songs, and hymns written in memory of his greatness. Even John Philip Sousa honored Lincoln indirectly, setting to music what was said to be his favorite poem, "Oh, why should the spirit of mortal be proud?" Its haunting lines about life and death mirrored Lincoln's own reflections on fate and humility. And that brings us to an important truth about Lincoln. He may not have been musical in skill, but he was musical in soul. He understood what music could do, how it could lift spirits, mend divisions, and move hearts when words alone could not. He lived surrounded by tragedy, yet he embraced beauty wherever it appeared. And even now, long after his passing, composers and listeners continue to return to him, inspired not only by his words, but by the music that encircled his life. Abraham Lincoln didn't create melodies, he inspired them. And that's why, more than a century later, his story still sings.